a shorter stream than my normal streams, probably going to be like 45 minutes long. And we're going to get through a lot. And I'm going to go through players I think you need to be trading for right now, players that I think you need to be trading away before it's too late. YouTube stream, let me just make sure we are good with the... Let me know in the comments if you're live on YouTube. How's the quality right now? Is the quality okay? Because I can turn down the definition, I think, a little bit. Quality okay on YouTube, everyone? I think it might be just a tiny bit slow, but I think we're good. All right. We're about to go live on YouTube. I mean, on TikTok as well. And I will start with this question from Josh Kaplan in the YouTube chat. Josh is saying, I just traded Mike Williams and Damon Harris for Stephon Diggs. Do you think I won? And now my running backs are CMC, Chuba Hubbard, and Edmonds. Yeah, that's a big W. You want Stephon Diggs. Guys, you want Stephon Diggs in fantasy football. Stephon Diggs still has a chance to be the #1 overall wide receiver for the rest of the season. That is what you're talking about when we're talking about league-winning upside. That's exactly what Stephon Diggs has. Josh, I like the trade. All right, I'm going to be talking about Stephon Diggs, I think, Josh, a little bit throughout this entire live. All right, we're live on TikTok now as well. And I want to talk just first a few trades. And if you want to see some of the trades that I'm talking about, come to the TikTok live as well. Stay on the YouTube live too, though, because there's going to be some content on YouTube as well. But the very first trade I wanted to talk about is one that was already sent in to the TikTok live stream. Someone traded Allen Robinson and Miles Sanders for Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, and let me pull this up on the YouTube really quickly. And I will hit a lot of these YouTube comments, a lot of these TikTok comments as well. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. The first ever WalterPicks trade-specific live stream. We're talking all about fantasy football trades on this live stream. I'm just going to pull up to start out some running backs with league-winning upside that I think you need to trade for. You got to come to the YouTube live stream to see these. I'll talk through them as well. But one of them, and I think the #1 for me right now, is Joe Mixon. And these aren't in a very particular order. I mostly try to order these in a way that guys that I think you could go actually trade for, right? Like I think you want Derrick Henry, but good luck trading for Derrick Henry. Like everybody wants Derrick Henry, so it's not going to be easy to go get Derrick Henry. But Joe Mixon is a guy that you can go get, and he is valuable. And he's also been dealing with an injury, but hasn't had setbacks with the injury. Joe Mixon has league-winning upside. He also has a top 5 easiest schedule remaining for the rest of the season. For running backs, he has a top 5 easiest schedule in the fantasy football playoffs. For running backs, Joe Mixon has a legitimate chance to win fantasy football leagues this year. And when he's been fully healthy, we've seen Joe Mixon get massive workloads. I love this trade. If you're watching on the TikTok live, Allen Robinson and Miles Sanders for Joe Mixon. That is a W. That is easy. Chalk that one up as a W. Another trade. This is a trade that I saw in one of my leagues today. Deandre Hopkins traded away for Mike Williams and Jacoby Myers. I usually like, when I'm doing trades, I usually like getting the best player in the trade. And so I usually like trading 2 players for 1 player, especially the closer and closer we get to the fantasy football playoffs, the better and better that strategy gets, because depth matters less and less as the season goes on. So you should be more willing to trade away multiple pieces for the best piece in the trade as the season goes on. But I don't think that's the case in this trade. And if you see the WalterPicks trade analyzer behind me on the TikTok live, you'll see that Walter actually has Mike Williams as a higher trade value than DeAndre Hopkins. And the reason for this is most of the fantasy points DeAndre Hopkins have scored have come through touchdowns. And that's not as sustainable as the way Mike Williams is scoring touchdowns with deep targets and consistent targets. Mike Williams is out-targeting DeAndre Hopkins in most weeks. So I actually think this play in this trade, I mean, I think this side won, and it wasn't even close. I actually think Jacoby Myers is another guy that I think you can definitely go trade for right now, and you should strongly consider trading for Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers, the clear-cut wide receiver 1 for the New England Patriots, and he also has a really good schedule in the fantasy football playoffs. Jacoby Myers and the Patriots have a very tough run schedule. I posted a video about this on TikTok earlier today. Damon Harris and the Patriots, like the Patriots want to run through Damon Harris. This is how the team was built heading into the season. The 2 tight ends and the offensive line, which had its first good game of the season this past week, but it was against the Jets, so I'm not holding my breath. but they're going to have to throw the ball in the fantasy football playoffs with the matchups that they have. It's a bad matchup for the run, and it's a good matchup for the pass, making Jacoby Myers one of the most obvious buy low candidates right now. And you're buying low because the man just can't score touchdowns. He's thrown touchdowns, but he has never caught a touchdown in the NFL, and that's not going to happen for the entire season. So he hasn't gotten over 12 fantasy points in 3 straight weeks. That's a guy you can go trade for. And he's not that much less valuable than DeAndre Hopkins. Guys, if you're watching live on TikTok, if you're watching live on YouTube, and you haven't tried out the WalterPicks Trade Analyzer yet in the iOS App Store, the link is in the TikTok bio. The link is in the YouTube links below in the description. The screenshot you're seeing behind me on TikTok, this is straight from the WalterPicks app. And you can use this. It's custom to your league settings. You get a completely free 1-week trial, 100% free. So if you're considering any big trades in your league, go try the 1-week free trial, dominate your trade, make sure you win the trade. And then, if it ends up working out, then do the premium subscription in the WalterPicks app. All right. There's another trade that we had before the live stream that I want to talk about. There's actually 2 more that I want to talk about. This is another trade that happened in my fantasy league. And this one's very close. This trade, if you're watching live on TikTok, this is Stefon Diggs traded away for Deontay Johnson and Joe Mixon. And again, I usually like being the person that trades 2 players and gets the best player in the trade. But in this case, once again, I think I prefer Deontay Johnson and Joe Mixon, especially if this person needed a wide receiver and a running back. This is the difficult thing sometimes about talking about trades. And when I answer some of your trades during this live stream, and I'm even going to try to ask some people to join the TikTok live, some people that are watching live to come up and ask some trade questions. It's important to understand the context of the league and the league settings, but also team needs. Like this trade could end up working out for both sides. Like if Deontay Johnson was a bench player for this team, it was a great trade. And if Deontay Johnson and Joe Mixon are going to start for your team, I would be willing to trade away Stefon Diggs for them. And I said this earlier in the stream. I think Joe Mixon is going to be a league-winning fantasy football running back if he can stay healthy. We've seen him get massive, astronomical workloads already, and he has an amazing schedule the rest of the season. Top 5 fantasy football running back schedule rest of the season, top 5 fantasy football playoff schedule. Joe Mixon and the Bengals offense is also cooking, which is what you want to see. Sam, do I start Ertz or Goddard? You came to the wrong live stream. This is not the start-sit live stream. This is the trade live stream. Of course, you should start Dallas Goddard, but we're not going to be answering start-sit questions during this live. We're talking strictly trades, man. Strictly trades tonight. All right, one more trade before we get to some of the comments in the live stream. I see a lot of comments coming in. This is another trade that I found very interesting that I saw in the comments before the live. Nick Chubb traded away for Terry McLaurin and David Montgomery. I want to talk about all these guys because I think all these guys are really interesting to be involved in trades, and I think you could want them for different reasons. Nick Chubb is a guy that absolutely has league-winning upside, and he's also going to be back well before Kareem Hunt. So Ernest Johnson might take the Kareem Hunt role, but it's like at worst, when Nick Chubb comes back, he's going to take the normal Nick Chubb role. And the normal Nick Chubb role is a running back 1. He could easily go over 100 yards and have 2 touchdowns any given week in the Nick Chubb role, even if Kareem Hunt's back. So yeah, I don't want to be trading away Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb is a good guy to target, especially if you're already a lock for the fantasy football playoffs. I think your mindset in fantasy football trades has to change drastically depending on the position you're in. If you are in the top 3 or 4 spots in your league, you got to be only looking at the fantasy football playoffs. Like that's all that matters. You're already basically in. So make sure you're getting guys with good fantasy football playoff schedules. Like this is an advantage that you gained by doing well in the beginning of the season. Don't let that go to waste. Go trade for players that are injured now. That like Nick Chubb, who's going to be back this week or next week, and he's going to be healthy, or at least has as good of a chance as everyone else to be healthy by the fantasy football playoffs. Like go trade for him. Same thing goes for Christian McCaffrey. A lot of these guys that are out right now. Dalvin Cook is probably the number 1 guy I would go try to get if you can get him. He's fully back now. Dalvin Cook could easily be the number 1 running back rest of season. Like that would not be surprising. So I don't like trading away Nick Chubb. For Terry McLaurin and David Montgomery side here, which I think is the losing side. Let me be very clear. I think this is the losing side of this trade. If you are getting Terry McLaurin and David Montgomery, but you're giving up Nick Chubb, I like Terry McLaurin. David Montgomery he does have, again, this happened last season too with Montgomery, a great fantasy football playoff schedule, but it's really uncertain how much Khalil Herbert's going to be involved when David Montgomery returns. We don't know when David Montgomery's returning. It could be another 3 or 4 weeks. He should be back for the playoffs. The Bears also, though, will have nothing to play for by then. I mean, the Bears are just absolute dumpster fires a team. So why would they rush back David Montgomery? There's going to be very little incentive for them to not split the carries between David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. So I don't think David Montgomery is going to be league winning back. He does have a good schedule, though. So it's certainly in the cards. But yeah, this is a huge W for whoever's getting Nick Chubb in this trade. All right, let's get to some of the comments in the chat. Guys, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. If you come to the YouTube live, link is in the TikTok bio. I have at the bottom of the screen a list of running backs that you should go trade for. I have a list of, I think, 7 running backs here that I think that are actually you're able to acquire. It's not just like a random list of my favorite 8 running backs. Like Derrick Henry's not on this list because I don't think it's possible to trade for Derrick Henry right now in most leagues. So we're just not going to talk about him because Derrick Henry was the best fantasy football pick of the season so far. But there's a lot of running backs that you can actually go acquire for reasonable prices. James Robinson stands out to me as one fantastic fantasy football playoff schedule. Joe Mixon, fantastic fantasy football playoff schedule. Another guy we haven't talked about yet is Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke Elliott, guys. The Dallas Cowboys offensive line is looking very healthy. And I think the Cowboys offense could absolutely dominate in the second half of this season. Second half of the fantasy season, I guess. We're not quite through the second half of the NFL season. So I think Zeke, and honestly, all the Cowboys players, Amari Cooper is a pretty good buy low candidate as well right now. He has not been producing quite as much as CeeDee Lamb of late. All right, so let's get to some of the questions here in the TikTok and YouTube chat. I just offered Ridley and Waller for Eckler and Higbee. I don't hate it. I don't hate this one. But you are also giving up the better tight end, and I don't like trading away Calvin Ridley right now. I do think that Calvin Ridley is one of the best buy low candidates at the wide receiver position. If I pull those up on the YouTube live. Guys, if you're watching live on TikTok, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. If you're watching live on TikTok, it looks like it says lost connection. Hopefully that comes back very soon. Let's get off of the Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is struggling, I guess, right now. Should be back momentarily on that. All right, let's pull up one of these YouTube questions. It actually is easier. It is easier for me to answer the YouTube comments. Like I can pull them up much easier than I can the TikTok comments. So we're going to look at some of these YouTube comments. All right, thoughts on, I know it's weird, but Mike Williams and Khalil Herbert for Diggs. No, peoples, this is not weird. This is a W trade. You got to do this trade. You're getting the best player. By the way, I'm very impressed with Khalil Herbert. I don't know how you could not be impressed with Khalil Herbert with what he's done so far. But you're getting Stephon Diggs. We talked about it at the beginning of the stream, too. Stephon Diggs has a chance to be the number 1 overall wide receiver for the rest of the season. The number 1 overall wide receiver for the rest of the season. All right, we're struggling with the connection on TikTok right now. I'm not really sure what's going on. Let me try to switch to a different Wi-Fi if I can here. Not sure which Wi-Fi I'm connected to. But let's see here. Please don't ask me to put in a password. Let's go. All right, let's look at another one here. Do I start Robinson and Zeke? This is Max. This is not the start sit. This is not the start sit live. Man, this is the trade. This is the trade live. We're talking about trades right now. Tune into the Sunday morning live when we have more info to talk about those types of decisions. Because you don't need to make this decision until Sunday morning. So just take your time. Take your time. All right, Chubb for James Robinson and McLaurin. Yeah, I would do this one because James Robinson's playing right now, especially if you need to win now. Like this is the thing we talked a little bit about what to do if you have a lead right now in your league. Like if you have a lead in your league, then you need to be making moves for the fantasy football playoffs. Like you just got to go make moves for the playoffs. You should be only focused on the playoffs because the goal is to win your league. And once you're in the playoffs, like that's really all that matters. All right. I'm really struggling with the connection. I've never had this problem on TikTok before. Hopefully it comes back. But yeah, I would do this trade. I don't think there's that much of a difference between James Robinson and Nick Chubb. And James Robinson actually has a better fantasy football playoff schedule. All right. I don't know. Maybe ending the live and then starting it again might work. Let's try that out. Let's just do it. We're gonna test that out. All right. Put your comments in the chat. Hey, Sam, thoughts on MT? If I were to offer a trade for him, what would it be? Yeah, Michael Thomas is a guy that you can go trade for in a lot of leagues. He hasn't played all season. He has not played all season. And we know what Michael Thomas could be, right? We all know what Michael Thomas could be. Michael Thomas could be a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy football. But personally, I don't think that's what we're going to get from Michael Thomas. Because when you look at how the Saints have operated this season, and of course, this could change when Michael Thomas comes back, they have really not put the ball in Jameis Winston's hands very often. There's not as much volume in the passing offense as there used to be when Michael Thomas thrived with Drew Brees. And he also feels like he fits much worse with Jameis Winston's style than he would with Drew Brees' style. Jameis Winston has thrown under 23 passing attempts, 23 or fewer passing attempts in 4 out of his 6 games. The only player that's thrown more games with under 23 attempts, a higher percentage of games with under 23 attempts, is Justin Fields, who the Bears just refuse to let throw the ball. So I feel like the volume might not be there for Michael Thomas. But he does have the league-winning upside. So if you're going to offer a trade for Michael Thomas, I would say any sort of combination of bench players on your team is probably worth it. I wouldn't be trading starters away from Michael Thomas, though Michael Thomas does fall under the list of guys to trade for if you are in top 5 of your league. Like if you're in top 5 of your league, you're in the fantasy football playoffs. So he's the perfect type of guy to go get. But if you're in the bottom 5 of your league, and I know there's a lot of us struggling, I'm in the bottom. If you've been following me from the beginning, 6 high-stakes fantasy leagues. I'm in the bottom 5 in 2 of those leagues, even though both of those leagues I'm in the top 5 of points scored. That's just how fantasy football goes sometimes. And in those leagues, one of them I have Christian McCaffrey. I have the second most points scored in that league. I have Christian McCaffrey. I'm in 11th out of 12th place. Just absolutely brutal. And I'm going to trade Christian McCaffrey away because I just cannot wait for Christian McCaffrey any longer. All right, let's get to this question from JV in the YouTube live. And guys, if you haven't tried out the WalterPicks trade analyzer yet, you got to try it out. JV's loving the app. I appreciate that, JV. Should I trade Dalton Schultz for Damon Harris? I have Goddard and Kittle. Yeah, 100%. Schultz is worthless to you. If you have Goddard and Kittle, then Dalton Schultz is basically worthless for you. And you're getting Damon Harris, Damon Harris I don't think is going to be very good in the fantasy football playoffs, but he can help you get there. The Patriots have plenty of winnable games left, and the Patriots are a run-first team this season. Najee Harris for Nick Chubb. I would not do that. Guys, Najee Harris's workload is top in the league. There's not a single running back in the league that's getting a better workload than Najee Harris. That's exactly what you want to look at when evaluating running backs in fantasy football. I traded Ernest Johnson for Miles Sanders. That W, yeah, it's a huge dub. Miles Sanders, so let's talk about Miles Sanders for a second because, brutal timing for the injury because Miles Sanders was on his way to his really first breakout game of the season since week 1. Week 1's the only week he finished as a top 15 running back in fantasy football. Every other week he's been outside the top 30. Miles Sanders has been a bust this season. Let's be real. But Miles Sanders also had pretty good peripheral numbers coming into this game this past week. He had 91% snap share the week before. And the Eagles just haven't had leads, and that's a problem for Miles Sanders. Like, the Eagles need to have a lead in the game for Miles Sanders to see that type of workload we need for him to be a running back 1. But he's out for a while now, and I think Miles Sanders is now falling under a bucket of guys that is very easy to go acquire in fantasy. Like, people are so done with Miles Sanders. If there's a person in your league that has had Miles Sanders and drafted Miles Sanders, and they've had Miles Sanders since the season started, you can probably get Miles Sanders for basically nothing. And he will have league-winning upside by the fantasy football playoffs. It might take that long, though. It could be that long. So if you're top 5 in your league, Miles Sanders is honestly, I think, top of the list of running backs to just go get for free. You have the advantage by being ahead in your league. Use the advantage. You got to use the advantage. Otherwise, like, what was the point of having a hot start to your season? Would you trade CMC for Patterson and Keenan Allen? No, I would not do that. I would not trade CMC for Patterson and Keenan. You can get more than that. You can get more than Patterson and Keenan Allen. And Cordero Patterson's another guy, and I've been saying this for a few weeks, and I've been wrong so far. And I could end up being wrong. Like, Cordero Patterson, as of last week, I'm going to pull up Cordero Patterson's stats really quickly. But, like, I think Mike Davis had, 4 carries last week? Cordero Patterson is the primary back, it looks like, after last week. And so maybe this isn't as good of a time to trade Cordero Patterson as I thought, but he's also had a really good schedule. You got to look at Cordero Patterson's last 4 matchups. He played the Giants, bottom 10 rushing defense, the Washington football team, bottom 10 rushing defense, the Jets, who just allowed 52 points. Was it 52, 51 points? Maybe it was more than that, to the Patriots. And then the Dolphins, who are bottom 10 rushing defense. 4 bottom 10 rushing defenses in a row for the Atlanta Falcons, and he's gone over 14 fantasy points in 4. Like, you can trade Cordero Patterson for quite a lot right now. So I think you should consider it, because the schedule isn't this easy the rest of the season for the Atlanta Falcons. I do think Mike Davis will continue to be involved, but man, Cordero Patterson played 70% of the snaps, a season high 70% of the snaps. Encouraging usage. He had 14 carries. He ran 27 routes, 5 targets. I mean, that's pretty encouraging usage for Cordero. So I wouldn't be selling low on him by any means. All right, we got someone looking to join the live. Let's see if we got a good question here from AX Spencer. AX Spencer, you got to follow the rules, man. Trade question?
A trade question?
Yeah.
What's like the most popular, like, you know, I don't know how to ask it, but what's the most popular, like, you know what I'm saying?
Most popular guy to go trade for.
Say it again?
The most popular guy to go trade for? All right, we're gonna wrap it up there. Bad sound quality. Sound quality's got to be better, guys. If you joined the last stream, it's got to be better than that. But thanks for hopping on, Spencer, to the TikTok live, and we will be experimenting with that a little bit more. But yeah, on the YouTube live, if you come to the YouTube live, I have 7 really good guys to come trade for at the running back position. Let me pull up some guys at the wide receiver position. The position we have not talked about yet is the tight end position, and the tight end position is oftentimes the most overlooked position in fantasy football. There's just not that many good tight ends. And I do think it's worth trading for Travis Kelce. Obviously, it's not going to be easy to do. I think it's worth trading for Darren Waller. But it's not going to be easy to do, even though he's dealing with an injury. Though, again, that probably makes it a little bit easier to get Darren Waller right now, especially if he's on a team that isn't doing well in your league. Again, a lot of this stuff is very league and team specific. So when you do ask trade questions, you got to give me a little bit of specifics. I will get to some of the comments really shortly. But I do like trading for Tyler Higbee right now. I think Tyler Higbee is one of these tight ends that has not had this big breakout game yet. Tyler Higbee, to me, you look at the usage for Higbee. He played 100% of the snaps last week and 98% of the snaps the week before that. He now has 4 games playing over 95% of the snaps for the Rams. He has the second highest snap rate in the entire league. The usage is there. He's also top 8 in routes run, top 9 in receptions. But when you look at his fantasy points per game, he's at 17th. He's averaging 9 fantasy points per game. He hasn't scored many touchdowns. But then you look at his red zone usage, and the red zone usage is actually, it's kind of there. Like he's seeing red zone targets. He's seen the most red zone targets in the entire league. He has 12 red zone targets. The most red zone targets in the league at the tight end position is Tyler Higbee, which means he has the highest touchdown upside of all tight ends. Like, I think you could probably argue Kelce and Waller probably still have higher touchdown upside, maybe Pitts at this point too. But he has the most red zone targets. He has the best volume in the touchdown scoring part of the field. And you can get him pretty cheap right now. Like, most people are not looking at red zone targets. You can go get Tyler Higbee for pretty good value. So if you're struggling at the tight end position, and probably half of all people at least are struggling at the tight end position, which is how dumpster fire the tight end position is again this season, go trade for Tyler Higbee. I think Tyler Higbee is probably my favorite tight end to go trade for. Do I trade for anything? I mean, could you give me less information there in the TikTok chat? Man, could I trade for anything? Of course, you could trade, for anything. All right, let's get to some of the YouTube comments. Guys, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now, and the link is to the YouTube is in the TikTok bio. It's easier for me to answer the comments in the YouTube live. I can just pull them up with like literally a click. It's a little bit harder on the TikTok live. The comments are just much harder to read as well. I will invite some people up to join the live stream, though, if you are interested in asking your question on camera on the live. All right. I just traded most of my team and Cooper Kupp. Should I trade Joe Mixon, Goddard, and Cobb, and Antonio Brown for Zeke, Marvin, and Elijah Moore? Yeah, I like this trade a lot. I like this trade because Joe Mixon is not on the same level as Ezekiel Elliott. Like, it's really not that close. Honestly, Zeke is a top 5 asset in fantasy right now. Joe Mixon is more like a top 12 asset. So, yeah, if you're getting Zeke in this trade, I don't feel very strongly about Dallas Goedert, Randall Cobb, Randall Cobb and Antonio Brown are basically worthless at this point. Antonio Brown, guys, could be out for a while. He could be out for the next month, maybe longer. So if you're in a position where you need to win now, like, Antonio Brown is not the guy you want. I don't think Marvin Jones or Elijah Moore is worth much either, though. I traded CeeDee Lamb for Deebo Samuel. Good or bad trade? No, that's a bad trade. I mean, I think it's a bad trade. I don't hate the trade. Like, Deebo Samuel is good. Don't get me wrong. But CeeDee Lamb is better. The Cowboys offense, I'm telling you, it is set up for such a good second half of the season. Their offensive line, fully healthy. Their offensive line, they actually have like 6 starting offensive linemen. Like their sixth offensive lineman would be a starter on almost every other team in the NFL. So they not only have a healthy offensive line, they have depth at the offensive line. Zeke is looking healthy. Zeke is really the whole Cowboys offense could lead the league in points scored the rest of the season. All right, guys. Gibson for T. Higgins. That's a pretty fair trade. I mean, both guys' stocks are down. I probably would prefer Antonio Gibson still. I'm in last place. All right, let's help this guy out in last place. Your last place in your league. It's not too late, by the way. It is not too late to get rid of that, to get out of last place. You got to avoid last place punishments at all costs right now. I have Tyreek Hill and Nick Chubb. Who can I trade for so I can start getting some W's? Yeah, I wouldn't trade away Tyreek Hill, but I would trade away Nick Chubb. And I think that if you're in last place, you cannot wait for these guys that are injured. And actually, I would wait to see. It feels like Nick Chubb could play this week. And if Nick Chubb is playing this week, then you really don't need to trade him either. But if he's not playing this week, you almost have to trade him. Like you can't sit on Nick Chubb any longer. So if he doesn't play, I would go look for some of these running backs that we've talked about on this live stream. Probably my favorites are the top three here. Joe Mixon. You can probably get Joe Mixon for Nick Chubb. Like you could easily convince someone that Nick Chubb is more valuable long-term than Joe Mixon, and you could be right. But Joe Mixon, his volume in games where both Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon were healthy, Joe Mixon's seeing much more volume. Like significantly, like almost like 1.5 times as much volume. So go see if you can go Joe Mixon. I think he can help you out. Dalvin Cook is also another guy that like Dalvin Cook could easily finish the rest of the season as the number one overall running back. He could go absolutely bananas. He has a pretty good schedule too. Should I trade Hopkins? Yeah, let me pull this comment up in the. Let's see if I can pull this up. Should I trade DeAndre Hopkins? And let me switch on the background really quickly. I think there's a trade here with Hopkins. And the screenshots you're seeing behind me on the TikTok live, these are straight from the trade analyzer in the WalterPicks app, which I've spent over 10,000 hours of my life helping build. The link to the app is in the TikTok bio, and it is completely free for the first week that you use it. The first completely free the first week. So you get a completely free 1 week trial that's going to help you analyze all your trades. And after that, it's only $5 a month. All right. I'm in last with Derrick Henry. Oh, man. I mean, how is that even possible? How are you in last place with Derrick the King Henry? He was having a historic season for the third year in a row. Can you help me tell me a trade? Please, loser has to do the cinnamon challenge. Oh, no. You cannot be coming in last. And honestly, like I feel like last place with Derrick Henry is like exponentially worse. Like last place is already bad. It's bad. Last place is not somewhere anyone wants to be. But last place with Derrick Henry is you really got no excuse. You got no excuse, man. But yeah, you should probably trade away. Like your team's probably so bad after Derrick Henry that you probably need to trade away Derrick Henry. Like go talk to the guys in first, second, third, fourth place. They're gonna want Derrick Henry. You're gonna be able to get a lot for Derrick Henry. You're probably gonna be able to get a solid running back 1 and a solid wide receiver 1, and probably something else too. Like that's how good Derrick Henry's been. And when you're going to trade Derrick Henry in this situation, and by the way, in most situations for everyone else listening, don't go trade Derrick Henry. Like if you're not in last place, you shouldn't be trading away Derrick Henry. But if you have absolutely nobody else on your team and you're in last and you need other players, then you almost have to trade Derrick Henry. And you should be sending. What you should do is send how good Derrick Henry has been to the rest of your league. Let them know that he's about to be the first running back in the last 30 years to average over 100 rushing yards per game in 3 consecutive seasons. You can find it my TikTok about that too if you just want to send them my TikTok about that. I think it's actually on Titans.WalterPicks account on TikTok. But yeah, go trade Derrick Henry for a solid running back 1, solid wide receiver 1. That's exactly what I would do. Guys, we got like 10 minutes left in this live stream. I want to get to as many of these trade questions as I can. These are all really good. But back to the DeAndre Hopkins question. Yes, I think you should trade DeAndre Hopkins. You just look at the numbers for Hopkins, and like Hopkins isn't a guy you feel good trading away because it's DeAndre Hopkins. Like we know DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best receivers in the history of the NFL. He's already a Hall of Famer. He's had 3 consecutive seasons with like 120 catches or something ridiculous like that. Like he does not have seasons without volume, but the volume is kind of lacking this year. He's 29th in targets this season. He's only seeing 6.7 targets per game. You go back in DeAndre Hopkins' career, and he's seeing 10 targets a game, 10 targets a game, 2020, 10 targets a game, 2019, 10 targets a game, 2018, 11 targets a game, 2017, 10 targets a game, 2016, and now 2021, he's seeing under 7 targets a game. The volume is down for DeAndre Hopkins. He's had 3 games under a 15% target share. And in those games, like if you are having under a 15% target share, your floor as a receiver is really low, which is why Walter's trade analyzer which uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to give a consistent mathematical score of trade values based on volume, production, and rest of season schedule, has Mike Williams ranked higher than DeAndre Hopkins. And Jacoby Myers isn't even that far behind Hopkins either. So, yeah, I think trading away DeAndre Hopkins shouldn't be that hard because it's DeAndre Hopkins, right? Like, people like the name DeAndre Hopkins. And he obviously will have good games. Like, he scored a lot of touchdowns. I think he's top in the league, maybe even in touchdowns. He's second in the league in total touchdowns. He has 7, which, again, that's the most unsustainable stat, especially when you consider how few targets he's getting. 7 touchdowns on only under 7 targets a game. Like, he's getting a lot of looks in the red zone, but the Cardinals are really just spreading the ball more this season because they have the weapons to do so. All right, hey, Sam, should I trade Jamar and Saquon? We're giving up Jamar Chase. Don't love that. Let me scroll up here to see who you're trading, who you're getting. You're getting Diggs and Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, you should do this. Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taylor is more valuable than Saquon right now and could easily be more valuable than Saquon even when Saquon gets back. JT's been over 100 yards 3 straight games, and he's actually been more involved as a receiver too. So you got to like Jonathan Taylor a lot right now. And then Stephon Diggs is still better than Jamar Chase. I know Jamar Chase, I think, has probably outscored him this fantasy season, but rest of season, I mean, you'd be crazy to rank Jamar Chase ahead of Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is the better receiver on a team that throws more. Like, it's just too easy. Should I do this trade? I get Darrell Henderson, DK Metcalf, and Chris Godwin. I give up Kamara, Brandon Cooks, and Keenan Allen. I don't like trading for DK Metcalf. Honestly, no, I don't think I would do this. You're giving away the best player in the trade, and I think the 2 receivers in this deal, Cooks and Keenan Allen, I would argue are better than DK Metcalf and Godwin long term. Keenan Allen's a super interesting case. Like, I don't expect him to do much better than he's been. He's been, like, weirdly consistently average, which is like a little bit worse than what we're used to for Keenan Allen. Right, Keenan Allen, you look at his week by week stats. Like, he's gone over 10 points every single week this season. He's one of just a few players that have done that. Jamar Chase, one of them, by the way. But he hasn't gone over 20 points once. Like, he's been between 10 and 20 points every single week, and he's only gone over 100 yards. He hasn't gone over 100 yards since week 2, and he had really good matchups the first 2 weeks of the season too. Like, he's done really well in the better matchups and not as well in the worst matchups. So I don't think he's like really a buy low or sell high candidate. Like, I think we know what we're getting with Keenan Allen. You're getting between 10 and 20 points. And I do think that has value in itself, but I don't know if it's league winning value. Do I trade Antonio Gibson? I'm 3 and 4. If so, for what? Yeah, I've seen so many Antonio Gibson questions. And yeah, I think it is a decent time to trade Antonio Gibson. Like, he's dealing with injuries. He's coming off a bad game, so it might not be the easiest time to sell him. Last week was probably the best time to sell him. But he's just not seeing targets. Like, he doesn't have the same type of upside that we wanted when we were drafting him in the 2nd and 3rd rounds of fantasy drafts, where we thought he could get a Christian McCaffrey type of role, which probably was wishful thinking looking back, because he doesn't have a single game in the past 6 weeks with more than 3 targets. Like, that's not the receiving volume we want from Antonio Gibson. And he had that one really long catch early in the season. I think it was week 2 or week 3. It was like a 60, 70-yard reception touchdown. That's like all of his receiving yards for the whole season. I think it was week 3, maybe, against the Bills. So, yeah, I don't like Antonio Gibson long-term. He's seeing volume on the ground. Like, he does have the goal line role. He will score touchdowns. I just think he's more of a running back 2 than a running back 1 this season. So if you can trade him with something else and go get a running back 1, I would probably do that. All right, I have Chubb, Patterson, Kamara, Chuba, Diggs, Kupp, and McLaurin. That's an absolutely dominant squad. I want to upgrade at tight end. I have Kittle, but want Kelsey. Yeah, all right. Of course, you want Kelsey, the undefeated. I would probably look to trade Patterson and Kittle. See if you can give up Patterson and Kittle. Or Patterson, Chuba, and Kittle. Like, I would give up Patterson, Chuba Hubbard, and Kittle. Go get Kelsey and maybe something else. Because you have Nick Chubb, you have Alvin Kamara for your 2 running back slots. I don't hate that at all. Should I trade Patterson? Yeah, I do think this is a good time to trade Cordero Patterson. Like, I do. I think he can't get much better than this. Like, it feels like you're almost automatically selling at a ceiling, because how could he possibly get better than what he's done so far? He's a top 5 fantasy football running back so far this season. Like, not that you're going to be able to trade him for that, but you can probably trade him for something close to that in a lot of leagues, especially Yahoo leagues where you get the wide receiver and running back designation, making him even more valuable. He scored he's averaging 19 fantasy points per game, 7th most in the league at the running back position. Just insane. And he had really good usage last game. Like, I think if you're trading Cordero Patterson away, you got to talk up his usage. He played 70% of the snaps last week. He had 14 carries and I think 4 targets. He ran a bunch of routes. He was really out there like the entire game. In Sam We Trust, should I trade Godwin, Chase Edmonds, Zach Moss for Henderson and Montgomery or Sanders? Yeah, Montgomery and Sanders to me, Yarjma, are like really similar camps right now. On one hand, Montgomery has the easier playoff schedule, but we're concerned about Khalil Herbert now because Herbert's clearly good. I mean, just rushed for 100 yards against the Buccaneers. Like, very impressive. And on the other hand, Sanders really hasn't done anything when he's played since week 1. And Kenny Gainwell's about to get a go, and he probably is going to be pretty good too. So, yeah, I don't love it. I really don't. I think Henderson's probably the best player in the deal, but Godwin's also going to get you wins. Like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, if you're towards the end of your league, you're in the bottom 4 spots. I mean, go trade for this is what fantasy football trades feel like. Go trade for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like, these are guys that are just going to get you wins right now in fantasy. Again, if you're watching live on TikTok or YouTube, the best way to analyze trades is in the WalterPicks app, in the iOS App Store. Gives you a consistent score for everyone. It's completely free to download. You get a completely free 1-week trial with the trade analyzer as well. So check that out. The link is in the TikTok bio. The link is in the YouTube comments, the YouTube description as well. All right. Walter, I'm back in last place. Derrick Henry guy, how you feel about Henry for Cook? How you feel about Henry for Cook, Kupp, and Pitts? It's your boy Cinnamon. I don't know. This comment's really confusing me. I'm confused about what the trade is. I'm confused about why I'm being called Cinnamon Boy. There's a lot of things that are confusing me. But if you're trading away Derrick Henry for Dalvin Cook, Cooper Kupp, and Kyle Pitts, then yeah, like do that trade. Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry aren't that far off from each other. And by the way, my name's Sam. It's a classic mistake. Walter's the artificially intelligent algorithm that I helped build that powers the WalterPicks app. Papa Sam. Wow. Should I trade Mixon and A.J. Brown for Devonte Adams? No. Definitely do not do that. Joe Mixon's really valuable. People don't sell low on Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is valuable. Joe Mixon has league-winning upside, and A.J. Brown is just coming into form. A.J. Brown could be up there with Devonte Adams. Like, he's not going to be Devonte Adams, but he could be up there with Devonte Adams. Like, he could be a top 10 receiver. He probably is rest of season in my top 10 receivers. All right. I got time for just a couple more questions. I'm playing in a soccer game tonight, so I cannot be late. Waller and A.J. Brown for Kelsey. Yeah, I wouldn't do that one either. Again, AJ, don't be selling it. This is not the time to sell A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, top 10 wide receiver rest of the season. All right. I think this one's a layup. Why is Mixon number 1 by RB? This list is not like super in order here. My number 1 buy running back, if you come to the YouTube live, link is in the TikTok bio. My number 1, I just think Joe Mixon's very, very, very gettable right now. That's not the word. Gettable is not a real word. But you can get Joe Mixon in most leagues right now. Like, there is value to be had in Joe Mixon. I think he's a very, very good value. He has a very good schedule, top 5 running back schedule rest of the season. He's finally coming back to full health. He's seen his snap share increase each of the last couple of weeks. And the Bengals offense is also starting to really look better and better every week, which is good news for Joe Mixon. That could mean more touchdowns for Joe Mixon. So I think all those reasons, you got to feel pretty good about Joe Mixon. His snap rate actually declined a little bit last week, but that was a big win. They didn't have to play Joe Mixon very much. He's seen at least 10 carries still in every single game. The volume is there. That he saw 6 targets a couple weeks ago against the Lions. He scored 26 points 2 weeks ago. He hasn't been under 10 fantasy points in 5 straight weeks, but he also is getting a much better schedule soon. So I just think he's very good value right now. The other guy that honestly probably should be higher up on this list is James Robinson, who's seen really, really great volume ever since Urban Meyer realized, why are we giving Carlos Hyde touches of the ball over James Robinson? So that's why he's number 1. But honestly, the order here isn't that important. I put this together pretty quickly. These are just a quick list of guys that I put together that I think you can go get in most leagues at good value right now that could win leagues. You want league winning guys at this point in fantasy season. Quickly, some receivers I think you got to go trade for. Calvin Ridley has been a buy low candidate all season. He remains a buy low candidate. He's seeing 10 targets a game. He's seeing volume. He's seeing actually more volume than he saw last season. So you still have to feel good about Calvin Ridley. Stephon Diggs, I still think, could be the number 1 overall receiver rest of season, and that's just not where he's getting valued right now. Devonte Smith could easily break out rest of season. He also plays Washington football team twice in the fantasy football playoffs. Their secondary has been abysmal this season. Jacoby Myers hasn't scored a touchdown yet in his NFL career. That will change. He's seeing very consistent volume in the New England Patriots offense. I think he's another guy that has a very good playoff schedule. Brandon Cooks seeing very consistent volume. Jalen Waddle, very consistent volume. And both of them, again, I think pretty good values to go get in fantasy right now. Brandon Cooks is coming off a bad couple of games too. Brandon Cooks, also Tyrod Taylor returning is very good news for Brandon Cooks. And then last but not least, Jerry Jeudy has really played one quarter this season. I loved him going into the season. There's obviously risk with Jerry Jeudy coming back from an injury, but Jerry Jeudy has league-winning upside. This is why we were drafting Jerry Jeudy in the 7th round of drafts. I think that if you're getting him for like under that 7th round price tag, or at that 7th round price tag that we were drafting him at, and he scored 13 points in like a quarter and a half. He's played 1.5 quarters. He scored 13 points. He ran 23 routes. He turned that into 13 points. And I think that he could have monster games down the stretch. And he also has a pretty good playoff schedule. Guys, that's my time. We're going to be back every Wednesday night for these trade live streams up until the trade deadline for fantasy football. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and that follow button if you're watching live on TikTok. And make sure you check out the WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store. It can help you with all of your trade decisions. Have a good one, guys. Make sure when you're making trades, you got winning your fantasy league in mind or making sure you don't come in last. Have a good one, guys. I'll be back live tomorrow night before the Thursday night football game, as always, to probably answer some trade questions on that one too. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and have a good